Hello, good people. Welcome to the Small But Massive podcast. This is a short series of 6 podcasts capturing voices from the Sperrins. My guests were Anne McAllister, Ollie McGuigan, Hugh McKenna, Paddy Gray, Lawrence O'Kane and Damien Hearn. All well-known people in the local community. These people were involved in music, dance, filmmaking, the arts and business. All things that Glasgowbury is doing now in the Corn Store Creative Hub. So check it out, good people. Thanks to the Department of Communities, Arts, Culture and Heritage Fund for supporting the making of this series. I always like to get my glasses on to start and to make sure I'm just the right person with the right name. I've got the right sheet in front of me. So what I would say first is you're welcome, Anne. Anne McAllister, teacher, mother, rural music innovator and all-round nice person. And I should say I've done a few podcasts, and this is the first podcast that I've actually had a teacher on and someone that has inspired me so much. So out of all the people that I've interviewed, I think this is my most exciting and maybe my most nervous. I'm not sure either. So thanks for coming, Anne. What we're trying to do, I suppose, is we're trying to capture. We were doing Small But Massive podcasts, and I was interviewing a lot of creative people from the past and the festival and different individuals and music people. Yeah. So this podcast is one of a start of hopefully a few, and it's all about rural people in our town, Ballinascreen, Draperstown, and hopefully hearing the community stories. Hearing where you've came from yourself and other individuals in the area, and hopefully those people out there that would be listening in will enjoy hearing the stories from good people like yourself. I suppose where I'll start, Anne, is your family. When you were growing up, how many was in your family, and where were you first born, and was it Draperstown itself?
I was born in Straw. Now known as Seamus Kelly's house. Yeah, Seamus was my brother. My father and mother were both musical and sang a lot. There was always music in the house. And there were 8 of us.
And where did you come within the 8?
I was the oldest.
You were the oldest?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I suppose when you were saying a family of 8, it would be a family, your family's well known in the area? You mentioned Master Seamus there.
There's plenty of Kellys.
Yeah, there's a lot. You have took over every corner basically in the town.
They all have nicknames because there's so many.
There you go. And was that a case of the likes of your own father? Would there have been a lot of brothers and connections?
No, he had one brother, Father Mick, his brother, and 2 sisters, Mary Donnelly and Bridget Kelly.
There you go. And and you were saying there was a lot of music in the house. Is that what sort of inspired you, or were your parents sort of saying, you got to learn an instrument, it's really important?
No, not at all, no. We enjoyed music. There was always a radio. You'd be sitting listening to it with your ear to it at that time.
Yeah. Who would have been the artist then? Would have been pumping out in the radio?
Well, that's when I was a child.
Yeah.
It would have been like Bing Crosby and people like that, Rosemary Clooney and all that. But in my teenage years, it would have been American music.
Yeah,
like
Elvis and stuff.
Elvis, definitely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And was there anybody else from America at that time that inspired you?
I'm trying to think now.
You're all right. Jerry Lee Lewis or any of the rock and roll?
Jerry Lee Lewis, yeah. Piano and rock and roll.
Bill Haley, rock around the clock, stuff like that.
I wasn't that mad about Bill Haley, but I liked rock and roll.
Rock and roll. And that I suppose that was a pathway of what the music was happening at that time and changing, I suppose.
Little Richard, Fats Domino.
Farmer Thrills, Blueberry Hill.
That was one of the first things I played on the piano once I learned.
That is absolutely fantastic song. And it's so nice, and it's so there's not a big garage around. It's just piano and this cool air.
Ain't That a Shame was another one.
Yeah. And what about you mentioned Little Richard there? You know, because some people say like Little Richard was the instigator of the first rock singer. You know the way he played. No,
I think he came before. Oh, he came before Elvis Presley, really.
Yeah.
And again, the piano. was what caught my...
You shake my nerves
Yeah.
and you're it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. And so you then, when you were saying there about your family being steeped in music,
Yeah.
was it kind of, you obviously the radio was inspirational to you. At what age did you start learning the piano yourself, and who taught you?
We didn't have a piano in the house, and when I went to my cousin's house, they had an accordion, and I was always playing the accordion. And long before I didn't get lessons until I was at secondary school at Marafelt.
Yeah.
And then I went to Bernadette McAllister. She was then in Cahors.
Ah, there you go.
Bernadette just died recently, and she was inspirational. She loved music. She was a real good musician. She taught the piano and she taught the fiddle. She was very good. Yeah, you know, Regina's aunt.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And was that when you were going for lessons? Was that up Cahors? Where she lived?
Up Cahors, yeah. I walked up, got off the bus at
There
Molly
you go.
McGuigan's and walked up
There you
Cahors
go.
for my lesson.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's where Regina lives now.
That's it.
There
and
you
then
go.
walked down and then walked up to Straw afterwards.
There you go. There was no getting lifted by mommy or daddy in them days, you know, like
no
a fleet of cars going around. No. And so when you were learning with Miss McAllister, what kind of styles was she teaching at that style? Or, you know, because I read somewhere, I know.
She taught anything, Irish, classical, fiddle was most, well, no, she took pupils for grade exams on the fiddle as well.
There you go.
And the piano. And she played one of her Atwell pieces, ragtime piano. She played anything. She loved music.
There you go. And did she sing along too?
No. But I remember her playing for the choir in Straw Chapel, you know.
Yeah.
St Columbus and Straw. She played for the choir, and when Mrs Reagan was off, she would do it for 5 or 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
And were you part of that?
Yeah, when Mrs Reagan went off, I filled in when I was about probably 12 or 13.
Jeez.
But it would have been very amateurish, I'm
no,
sure.
well,
you know.
I mean, you still stepped up to the mark
Yeah.
at 12 or 13,
Yeah,
would that have been your first sort of out there performances as such?
Probably, yeah. No, but I left out a part of it.
Yeah.
Nora O'Kane was a brilliant influence on everybody, both language, Irish language and Irish culture of all kinds. She started the fish, I think.
There you
here.
go.
And
That would have been way back in the, was that back in the
50s.
No way, yeah.
Late 40s, early 50s, yeah. She came up to Straw once a week and taught us Irish songs. And to this day, my sister and I can sing them word for word.
There you go.
The ones we learned there.
There you
know?
go. And there's people now trying to, I suppose, that whole Irish culture is coming back stronger now. The Irish language, and you know, you've the knee skulls, and you've got different places where people can get access. But back then, was it just the norm to people to learn Irish language?
No, I don't know if it happened in any other parishes, to tell you the truth. But she kept it going. She went out to Mononina one day a week. She came to Straw. I don't know if she went to the 6 towns, but she walked everywhere, and she was maybe in her 50s at that time.
No way. So she wanted to keep.
She was a poet. I brought in a book to show you of her poetry.
Oh, even better.
And
what was that lady's name again? Nora? What?
Nora O'Kane.
Nora O'Kane. And
she was a sister of, you didn't know Rosh O'Kane, no? She was a nurse, midwife. No. Lived where Burns's shop is now.
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
That,
No, you're all right. You're okay. And so from that there stage, so she read books. She was there. She was out and about. This was all free, obviously. This lady was coming about.
All free, yes.
Yeah,
and she was very friendly with Father Collins, and of course he was very much into the Irish culture as well. I think she started the fish and she kept it going, and she entered us all for the fish. So solo singing, there was playing instruments, there was competitions in sight reading music using tonic solfa. Have you ever heard of tonic solfa?
No.
Well, the other, I must bring in Master Maloney into that too. He taught in Straw School. He was the headmaster, and he taught tonic solfa every day faithfully from 1 till 1:30. He put it up on the board, do, me, so, whatever. Yeah. And we were taught to sing that.
Sing along.
And that's still with me to this day. And I think that's what got me interested in the music. Nora O'Kane did the same thing. She had a competition in the Fish for sight reading, but it wasn't sight reading from the 5 lines in the staff, as we know it, but it was from do, re, mi, fa, so, and it was...
And it was a good practical thing, I suppose. A lot of people still use that to warm up their vocals and
that's right,
and use it as a vocal exercise.
Yeah.
And is that what's kind of... you mentioned the Fish in them days. Did you enter yourself?
Yes, all of us did. Anybody who went to her classes entered for solo singing or choirs or whatever,
Yeah, and what was the choirs like back then?
The choirs wouldn't have been... There were good choirs which came from Derry sometimes, but the choirs would have been mainly just unison singing, and small choirs.
More for chapel style, was it?
Yeah, that would have been Irish songs,
And so the likes of, you mentioned the Fish, would the scores have been about at that stage?
No, there was nothing like that.
No, so that's so in saying that there, that meant that in the area for creativity, it was quite innovative place to be, Draperstown, Ballinascreen at the time.
It was brilliant. It had everything. Well, there's the first pantomime programme, and it says written by Eleanor Corner. She was a teacher from Marafelt, but she was friendly with Nora O'Kane, and I think Nora O'Kane helped with the writing of that and with 2 more pantomimes afterwards, and everybody was involved in them.
From all round.
I'm sure your mother was involved.
I don't know. She never told me about her acting debut, I don't know.
Well, Matty Cuskern definitely was.
I know definitely Matt.
Yeah.
I know Mum said that Matt liked to do a bits of acting.
Yeah, that's 1955.
Amazing.
And there's a picture of me and Maren McAllister as Prince Charming and Cinderella.
There you go. Back in the day.
I was 14 at the time.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's weird you pulling that out that even back then, so that's something that I've got Ollie McGuigan coming in too.
Ollie was in it.
There you go.
Yeah, and Jojo.
There you go.
All of that.
And that's
all
real.
McGuigans would have been in it, I'm sure.
That's really interesting because you were just saying there about the Fish, and then all of a sudden there was actual productions going on in the area as well.
Very much so.
And that's amazing because I knew there was, like, as I say, bits and pieces of plays going on when we were growing up, but I didn't know that the things were that old, that they could have went back to that far. Like that's really...
and they were very well done. And she, I think after, I'm not sure about Miss Core, I only realised that when I found that programme, but I always heard that Nora O'Kane wrote 2 or 3 of the pantomimes in rhyming couplets. And they were all the script was written like every 2 lines rhymed,
Was a wee rhythm.
Which was an undertaking in itself.
I think just mentioning that, lady, it seemed like yourself to be a very creative mind.
Yeah, very. Music, everything. And she was very Republican.
I heard a yahoo in the background there. I don't know where it came from, man. But that
was the time for, that was a sort of... She came from a time... She came from
the early 20s,
The 20s,
and she was at a phase of the first sort of, I suppose, what would have been the first uprising.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, she would have known people personally and that. You know?
And there was people travelled to that from all round. I suppose Ulster and all, and maybe even here.
Yeah,
she maybe knew people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And and then I suppose for yourself, then you then went away and got trained up to be a teacher.
That's right, yes.
And did you go to, was it Derry or Belfast?
St Mary's Training College in Belfast.
Belfast,
Yeah.
yeah. And how was that in them days?
Well, it was, I really loved St Mary's.
Aye.
It was very good. It was very different from school.
Aye, yeah.
You were treated like an adult.
Yeah.
And, I'm always running into people who remember when we were in the common room and playing Elvis Presley records and jiving.
What tune of Elvis's would have been what would have been Elvis?
Well, the one I loved was All Shook Up.
Oh, yeah. That was the first time he done the groovy dance. And
Yeah,
everybody
I didn't even see that.
There you go, because it was banned.
We didn't see American TV or films at that. Well, we saw films, but not. We didn't see Elvis until I think I heard him on the radio from about the mid-50s.
Yeah.
But then it would have been the 60s when people got TVs and you actually saw.
And you seen how cool he was and
Yeah.
how great an artist. And I suppose Elvis would have been the first, that type of first iconic worldwide icon.
Oh, very much so, yeah,
And
yeah.
I know that
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier on Bing Crosby and people like that,
that
they were all
was-
there, but they were there
That was
style.
pre my time.
Yeah.
Really. It was my father's and mother's music, really.
The rock pack
Yeah.
as such,
Yeah.
that sort of,
Yeah,
and then Elvis came along and all of a
Yeah.
sudden turned it upside down.
Very
and,
different,
and,
yeah.
And then the Beatles came along, was it?
Oh, the Beatles, yeah.
Yeah.
The Beatles. Who else? The Bee Gees.
Yeah,
The
and-
Stones.
And I suppose all them bands would have been an influence at the time when we were brought up. I suppose you said there you came from Ballinascreen, Draperstown to Belfast, and that would have been, you're meeting new people, and
That's right.
plus the fact you'd be surrounded by people at that time would have been creative people as well. That
That's
everybody
right,
had the same
yeah,
kind of,
yeah. Yeah.
And
in the college, because I was doing the course for the infant end of the primary school, they always presumed that you were going to be teaching music and sewing and nature study to the upper classes when the infants went home. So you had special training in music, a wee bit extra.
There you go, that's good.
Music and botany and that kind of thing,
yeah,
you know.
things that you could. Oh, it's all right. Oh, this is technology at its best. I'm the one usually. I'll take the call. It's all right. Say you're in TV, or I'll take it there. You want? It's all right. We can start again. Is it all right?
I meant to do that before we started. Sorry.
You're all right. If you want to talk to him, it's because
No,
we
it's okay. It's off now.
We could start and stop and
Not
start and
at
stop.
all, no.
So you went from St Mary's, and then you come up to another St Mary's in the primary school.
That's right.
Was that
no.
Was that your first, or was
I
it
taught
somewhere
in
else?
Belfast before. When I got married,
There you go.
we lived in England for 2 or 3 years, and then we came back to Belfast. And I was teaching in Belfast and St Peter's on the Falls Road, which was an experience during the early part of the Troubles.
Yeah.
It was very difficult.
Yeah, and you could see, I'm sure at that time you would have, it would have been, it was a fright night for everybody, but it would have been a fright night for them kids, and you having to teach them being in the middle of all that. I'm sure it'd have been quite hard.
Going to school in the morning was a problem because it was at the bottom of the Falls Road.
Aye.
And the buses didn't even go down the Falls Road. You had to get off the bus at the Royal and walk down from there. And well, you've seen it all on TV, I'm sure, the burning cars and buses and everything, You wouldn't want to go back to those times.
No. Well, hopefully them times are a thing of the past, and hopefully we can go forward with a more positive attitude.
Yeah.
So you had a couple of years in England and then Belfast, and then how did you land in St Mary's? Did you come home for a visit? And maybe you mentioned Fire Collins.
We were living in it's really part of Andersonstown. It was Ladybrook in Belfast, and it was kind of on the borderline, and it became more and more precarious. And we decided to move back home again, and we actually lived in Straw in my husband Joseph's family home for a year, and then we got a house in Campbelltown.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I didn't know you lived in Campbelltown.
We
there
were
you go.
there for, I think, 5 years. Or
there you go.
About that, yeah. And then we built back up in Straw.
And that's where you are now,
Yeah,
to this
that's where
day.
we are to this day, yeah.
That's brilliant. And so you went then and you went into St Mary's Primary School?
Yes.
Yeah. And
well, I was subbing in, as we call it, subbing.
yeah. Doing the double.
No, I was filling in for a teacher in St Pius's.
Yeah.
Mrs O'Kane. She was the music teacher. So I was there for 3 or 4 months, and then the job came up in St Mary's and I applied for it.
Brilliant.
And I got it. But I always remember Father Collins on the Saturday, he says to me, "You've got the job in Straw, but you have to take the choir." so that was it.
So he sort of, he gave you the job, but he sort of put you under duress to say you have to do this choir for the next 40 years.
It didn't really put me under duress. It was an opportunity, and I probably was nervous about it in the beginning, but I loved it.
And as I say, well, as I said earlier on, right back at the start, you taught me good self, and I remember you were taking one time the rehearsals for the Feis.
Yes.
And just for people out there, I was outside a certain door, and you were all rehearsing, and then at the end you asked me in to collect the books, and then you said, "Pat, will you try a wee version of this?" And I suppose I'd listened to that many people singing it, like you were saying earlier on, with your ear to the radio. I kind of knew it then, and I didn't know. I think it was Stora Gra or something like that, and it still haunts me to this day. But so I went on, and then little did I know that when I arrived at the Feis, that my name would be in the booklet up there with it was like a Hollywood thing, and then I was quite nervous. I suppose maybe because I hadn't rehearsed much, and singing solo wasn't something I'd done before. And but I remember going in, and the third place came, and second I thought, oh, this is it. But first place came, and it was me. And I remember the judge saying, you know, he can sing, but he needs to stand still. And but I remember you saying to me, "Oh, don't worry about that. That's just this situation," meaning that it's just the way they do it in a Feis. But I could say at that stage, that definitely lifted my confidence, and I went on and sung for bands and sung my own music and done different stuff. And on behalf of me, you mentioned other inspirations there for yourself. You certainly have been a big inspiration for me. And so whether that's a bad thing being connected to someone like me or a good thing, I'll just leave that out to the public.
Very proud of my ex-pupils.
And thank you very much. And that was a fantastic thing. And I think sometimes in life, you think you're not ready to go into stuff, and then somebody just sort of drifts you forward. And I've seen it in here in this building, and that sort of first showcase you get, or that first opportunity to sing a song or play a piano or guitar, or the first opportunity somebody gets to film something or record something. It's just it's a great thing, and it's due to good people like yourself having the baton all them years ago and passing it on, and many a student you have are teachers themselves now. We were chatting earlier on about young Jolene, who's teaching in St Pat's music now, and I suppose, and then there's me in here. It's a completely different sort of thing, but we still deal with all different young people and different people in the community. And so when I was at school too, there was a great opportunity. There was yourself and Mrs. McSwegan, God rest her, Patricia, and I don't know if many schools at the time would have had two so dynamic people in the one place. I've been in rooms with creative people, and it's just that they get things done, and there's a great vibration. And so you started like song and dance and choirs and so
that song and dance idea, if I may interrupt you for a minute, the song and dance idea, I just want to give credit where it's due. That belongs to Nora O'Kane too.
There you go.
On a smaller scale. There wouldn't have been costumes or anything like that, but she had us doing that. And to this day, I remember she would have played kind of classical pieces, and we learned. It would always have been about princes and princesses or something like that, and she taught us a gavotte to the music of Mozart, I think it was, and I still remember that to this day.
Yeah, well, because I suppose it's like. That made a massive impact on yourself,
yes,
and fair play to the lady herself, because she seemed to roll in and out of your time.
That's right, and everybody sort of my age group that was there remembers the same. They still remember the dances they did.
Yeah,
and she wasn't a dance teacher, but she made up the movements to suit the script.
Yeah, she was going with the rhythms.
Yeah,
that's really cool. And so then yourself and Miss McSwigan then for the TV program school.
Yes.
So how did that come about? Or
well, I think
children and their music, isn't that right?
That's right. Well, for a start, I think Ethna. And Ethna Donnelly
I remember
was involved in reviving the fish at some stage. I'm not sure, was it while I was away or when I came back here? And they brought back in the song and dance scene. And I think Mr. Kerrigan and Una McGuigan, and they used to enter for it. And when I was there a year or two in the school, we decided
we'll throw the hat on, have a go.
Yeah. So I think I got 5 or 6 songs picked and strung together and changed the words in them to suit the story.
Suit the narrative.
Met her in the garden where the pretties grow and things like that. And we sort of went from one into the other, and it told the story. And then Patricia did the dances with them, and it
seemed it come together
it came together. The first year mightn't have been great, but it seemed to get bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah, I think, and that's probably confidence in people and confidence in the singing but because another thing that you were great at, and Patricia, was getting everybody involved.
That's it. You wanted to,
people need to realise that at that particular TV show, it was down to primary 2. Like there was people, and that. Like, how did you handle all that? Was it a nightmare?
The whole staff were involved. You couldn't have done that on your own. Staff were all involved in the preparations. I mean, teachers had to release their class early to have a practice, and you stayed in after school quite a lot as well. And I must tell you about one thing. Mrs. McKiernan got the pupils to write about their experience at the BBC afterwards, and quite a number of them commented on the day that they were going to Belfast. They said that they remember getting on the bus at 7 o'clock in the morning outside the school, and Mrs. McSwigan and Mrs. McAllister had great difficulty getting the wardrobe, Mrs. McSwigan's wardrobe, heaved onto the bus. And Mrs. McSwigan had a special wardrobe made in 2 sections which closed together with caster wheels on it.
That's brilliant.
To hold all the costumes.
That's brilliant.
So, that was just one.
That was a
big thing.
And like for yourself, I suppose, like back in them days, you're growing up, you're watching people on TV, and all of a sudden you're on TV yourself. How did you feel with that all? Was it all new, or did you just focus on the choir like people do, and not worry about what was going on the right hand side?
It was nerve-wracking, but you had so much to do and
adrenaline.
So many things to keep in your head at the same time.
It's amazing, and for people out there, like it's online still. The actual,
it's on YouTube, or not YouTube's a local.
Yeah, well, I think after this here we'll be putting it out again, because
the Historical Society.
No, I think we have a version too somewhere. And
I forgot to say we were also involved in the making of the parish record. The CD, songs of Ballinascreen.
Oh, and when was that?
I'm not sure.
Maybe the
when
80s
that
or something like
was.
that, was it? And what tunes?
Well, it was the Historical Society. Would have been probably Graham Mahoney and Frank Smith
Aye.
were very involved in it.
And
we had
Patsy
to go to
McShane.
a recording studio in Randallstown.
Aye,
to record
Homestead.
that. That's it.
Run by Mud Wallace.
Who?
Mud Wallace was the man ran it. Aye,
right.
I knew him. He's not
Yeah.
here, God rest him,
Yeah.
but aye, that's Homestead. That was
So
a pretty big one at the
that
time.
was a big. It was. It was a big occasion
Aye.
too. Yeah.
And how did that all go? Being in recording and
The children were very good.
Aye,
You know,
aye.
it wasn't easy. Now,
Aye.
I think that recording studio would have been about a quarter of the size
Aye,
of this room.
aye, yeah.
And there might have been 50 or 60 children in it as well, so engineers.
And well, I suppose it's all an experience, and you were allowed to do that back in the day, and at the
That's
minute you're not
right.
even allowed one person
No
to
health
go.
and safety,
I know,
no.
but I suppose even back then. There you were, you got an opportunity to see how it worked in the studio and how it was like to
Yeah.
record and what it was like to get something out the other side,
That's
which is,
right.
I think it's a great achievement in itself.
Yeah.
And so the likes of, whenever coming back into Draperstown, you had, talking about the young people there in the choirs, you have
Yeah.
been connected with choirs all your life.
Yes.
And like you've put so many different choirs together.
Yeah.
Is there a format to put a choir together? Or is it, or are you listening for things, or you know, when people, you'll sing here and you sing here and you sing here?
Well, that all comes in time. You start off with a unison choir; they're all singing the same tune. But after a while, you get to know the ones who pick up, and you'd pick them for the harmony if they had a good strong ear and wouldn't be put off by singing the harmony. You just it's a matter of time and listening
and it's a lot of commitment too for choirs. You know, I suppose like anything in life, you know, and I think that there was a wee push there. I think it was a couple of years ago on TV for there was a gentleman around putting choirs together and different, and
Gareth Malone.
And I think it was a very energetic thing.
It was very,
and because you know, I'm not saying, but a lot of the times you see a lot of choirs and you there's not so many young people among it as such. It's hard to get that. And I don't know whether that's the style of music or what's happening there, or it's just it's maybe not in the psyche like it was years ago. You sung and you sung in a choir for a while and you came in and out.
Well, if you get them involved at primary school age, you see, you'll have bother if you don't. You'll have bother in the high school. Getting them to come along to choirs.
It's not cool
you
then.
know, if they haven't been doing it from the primary school.
That's
so it's very important to have as much music as you can in the primary school. And St Mary's is full of that, even to this day.
Now you still go up.
I still help. Well, I did until COVID. But you know,
dreaded word.
Evan Devlin and Miss Coyle, the principal. And there's Mrs. Graham as well. She's an excellent violinist, and she takes the choir in the school. I would have helped out by playing the piano accompaniment for the choir. Brilliant. And they entered for the school choir of the year every year.
There you go.
4 or 5 years.
There you go.
Know.
So it's strong, and
They're very, very good.
And
the choir.
That's been there since, and that's really important because I think at the minute, I know that. There was, like, we were asked through the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, like a music audit about youth, and there was a lot of teachers on it, and there was individual practitioners who would take lessons and all, and it was interesting to hear that a lot of music had actually been taken away from schools, and not some. It's brilliant that St Mary's isn't one of them, and I know Straw is very vibrant with music as well, and so. I know from someone like yourself, you've just said there, it's really important that there's music in schools, in primary schools, and it's maybe something that needs to be looked at again. And because sometimes, if it's just left to the teachers, they have that much other work on. That's what we were hearing back. There's, I'm doing this. I have so many in my class. I can't do piano, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. So
it's so demanding, you know, the
Yeah.
teaching at the minute. And the one thing I think is the way that young people have been deprived of normal life over the last year and a half with COVID. And they're talking about having special classes or special summer lessons to bring them up to where they should have been.
Yeah.
Well, I think for their mental health, things like art and music need to be brought into that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because for years they've been taking the money away from those
Exactly,
things.
exactly.
You know?
And I think that you've just hit something there, and that's totally right. And the fact that those that maybe learn an instrument can still go on and have a tailored career path.
Of course.
It's not, see, a lot of people think that it's all about this end or that end or the other end of rock and roll, or this and that and other, and there's not enough work in this, not enough work in that.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can ever rip creativity out of people's inside their heart, because you can try all your best, you can lock as many keys and doors in front of them you want, they'll still do it. And some of the greatest art has been done with people saying don't do it. And so I think that for me, it's really important that primary schools have an investment and even for other people to come in and inspire them in and out. I know we do after school stuff, but it's, I suppose in a way, you need that more consistent approach, like you have with the choirs, that there's commitment and people are into it. It's just there's that, and I suppose in an area like Ballinascreen, there's that much access now. That you've got the Scouts, you've got a great sports hall, you've got Celtic, you've got GAA, you've got ourselves, and that is only a good thing, I think, for a community. And I think as a small rural area, we should be proud of that. And I think it took a long time for all that to be put in place. People like yourself, trailblazing, and all of that, Mr. Kerrigan you mentioned, all the different people. And I know Q McKenna's taking on that mantle now. And Q's,
that's right.
Hopefully maybe get him in to chat about that whole Irish dancing thing. But I mean, for the likes of, I know that hopefully in the future there will be some kind of look at creativity. You've said there that the summer getting upgrading lessons and all to do with. I think that kids now need to have an option, because there's a lot of gaming out there now, and you can sit inside and you just. Whereas I know that a lot of the time, and even from in here, a lot of the parents were, when we were open again, they got really excited. The kids were glad. You're right, just to see somebody and to interact.
That's it.
And I mean, and I think it even shows from, I suppose, for me. From coming from being taught by yourself in the columns to here now having the podcast, and we're here with not the BBC but our version of the BBC from the other side of us, the Tiernan DC, you know. So
Pat, I wanted you mentioned the choirs. I forgot to mention one particular choir that had a great influence on me, and that was the Reagan Singers in Marafelt. Margaret Reagan was a young teacher who came from Scotland, I think Edinburgh, to teach in the Rainy in Marafelt. She married a local man, Eamon Reagan, and they set up the choir called the Reagan Singers. And she was a music graduate, and she knew all about it. And the standard of music she had us singing was unbelievable.
There you go.
And she wasn't there 2 years, I think, until we were singing with the Ulster Orchestra.
No way.
And the first time I ever heard a live orchestra was the first time we sang live with that orchestra. And I'll never forget it. The sound was unbelievable.
Did it just, you know that wee shiver you get?
It was overwhelming. And as well as that, and that was the first time I had ever heard a harp live, but it was one of these big orchestral harps.
Amazing.
And the sound of it was absolutely beautiful, you know. I think that's what wakened my interest in the harp. And then Yvonne Devlin up in the school, she and her husband made a copy of the O'Kelly harp.
There you go.
O'Kelly
connected
harp,
to yourself.
Connected to myself.
Well, you should say just on that behalf, that's a famous harp, a very famous harp, and Guinness
Henson or downhill harp. It's known as.
And would that have been your ancestors? that man?
Not a direct. He'd been a great granduncle or something
there you
like
go.
that.
There you go.
Because I don't think he was married. Cormac O'Kelly.
Yes.
Yeah. Came from Crieff.
There you go.
He made the harp. Somebody bought it. Then somebody else bought it and gave it as a gift to this man, Hempson, who was a blind harper and was very gifted.
Jeez,
And then he was employed or had a patron who was, the Downhill,
yeah.
Mussenden Temple.
Yeah.
The Bishop of Derry he was then, he was from Bristol originally, I think.
You go.
But it was him that acted as patron to Dennis Hempson. And I always thought it was him who bought the harp for Hempson, but I was reading recently in a newspaper article that it wasn't.
There you go.
I can't remember who it was, but he was presented with it and he played it for the rest of his life. And he took part, that's what Yvonne and her husband did a programme on TV called Ban Rain and Cool, the Queen of Music.
I just seen a wee bit of a clip of that online recently.
Yeah. And that harp was copied from the original in Guinness storage.
Dublin.
They went there, measured it, found out what kind of wood it was made from and copied it.
That's amazing.
And then made a TV programme about it.
So basically something that was made in Crieff
1600 something, I think.
Is now, and some would say the Guinness motto.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Like to be in a town and say, that's drink plenty of Guinness. It's good for you. So, and you brought some pictures as well, and of some.
Yes.
So, do you want to explain any of the pictures and the era and? And you can just show them to me, and it'll be captured anyway.
Well, that was the pantomime programmes there, so we'll keep them to the one side.
That's really good. The pantomimes, there's none of those lines like behind you, no? What is that?
Do you recognise that? No.
It looks like a novena.
It
looks like a holy prayer, I should be saying.
It's the very last cinema programme from Draperstown, and the reason I put it in was that I kept it because it was a big thing, the cinema closing.
Wow.
And the cinema was a big influence on us and our childhood.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Just looking if there's any. Marathon Man was one of the ones that was on at that stage. The Pink Panther. But it's not that the films were that good, it's just the last programme.
And that would have been a busy place for you growing up, the cinema, when you were younger.
Loved it. Yeah.
And that was...
We'd usually might get once a week, if you're lucky.
Aye.
If it was Westerns, you might get in the middle of the weekend on Sunday,
The Quiet Man and films like that.
Yeah. And that's Nora O'Kane's book of poetry, The Heart of Ballinascreen.
Do you want to read a wee one that you like out of it?
Yeah, I'm just trying to... I should have picked one before.
You're all right.
But...
She's quite an influence, Nora O'Kane, by the sounds of all.
Very much so, yeah. I can't think which one. This one's called A Pilgrimage. It's probably, could be about Loch Patrick, I don't know.
Yeah.
I crossed the windswept hills and wandered, dreaming on, through a wild gorse-grown glen in the chill light of dawn. I heard the curlew call, the plover moan in pain, and I stumbled blindly on, dripping and drenched with rain. Wet was the gorse and fern, soaked with the clinging dew. Misty and weird the bog, where the wild white canavan grew. Passed I a wet green wood, where branches sighed and wept, on to the brink of a lonesome lake, where the brown bog water slept. I have reached the holy isle, I have kissed the sacred ground, and with contrite love I pray, as I make each blessed round. The grief has left my heart, the fever my tortured brain. 'Tis with joy and gladness great I will cross the hill again.
That was beautiful. It sounds like it was about Loch Patrick.
I'd say it probably was. There's a part of it where there's a mound and you go on your knees round it or something.
I think it. And funny, there's a lot of. It's quite a famous Loch Patrick in a sense. It's a lot. And I suppose at the time, I think way back. Was it the film that Father Collins did?
Yeah, it's in that.
It's in that, and then it just shows all the people. Like that was a powerful scene coming over straw with all these priests and bishops and all.
Do you know, a lot of that film came from my uncle, my father's brother, Father Mick. He was very into recording technology and films.
There you go.
He'd been out in Burma during the war, and he'd got a movie camera from the Americans.
One of them wee cinema take.
And he'd got it from probably American soldiers after the war, you know. And he was always taking films. Everybody was always hiding.
I suppose, he was a man ahead of his time.
Yeah,
and he recognised that to capture what some may have thought was gaping about. He was capturing history, culture, and the area. Because I didn't know that. That's interesting for me because I always had this thing that Father Collins was this sort of.
Father Collins was very go ahead too. He certainly got this parish. Got a lot of work into it, didn't he?
Yeah, and he would have been influential. Well, I suppose it would have been Father McGlinchey at Dean McGlinchey Park back in the day.
Right,
you would remember that being.
Yeah, I do remember it being. That's on Father Mick's film.
Yeah,
first saw it being.
That was amazing. That was your uncle.
That was a historic moment.
That's mad. And so Father Mick, was he? Did he? Was he a priest in this area?
He was in the Columban Fathers, and he was posted out to Burma, and then the war came.
Yeah,
he was ordained just before the war. Like I wasn't here at that time.
No.
Then the war came, and he didn't get home, I think, until 1948, after the war.
Yeah,
and his health was affected by it. You know.
Well, I suppose like anything that got traumatic would be big, but yet he still recorded.
Oh yes, very much so. He taught in Dalgan Park, the Columban Fathers, in Navan.
There you go.
Yeah,
and that's really good because that's things like that I didn't know because I always thought it was Father Collins just had all this stuff and he was the man, but never thinking that he was maybe too young to have that footage. And then where did all the footage go, Father Mick? Did it disappear? Because obviously he had other footage.
A lot of his films disappeared. After he died, nobody knows what happened to them. Actually,
jeez,
I had one wee bit and I got it put onto a VHS. You know, and. Parts of it are included in the one you'll have seen because I gave it to the parish. Society
there you go.
At one stage.
And you know, there's in Belfast there's the NI screen and there's they sort of log old films and all like historical and actually that particular film is the most watched community film in Northern Ireland.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
So you know,
but there's another film of the parish which was made by Father Collins' nephew, Father Michael Collins. I think it's called the parish of Ballinascreen.
That's the one.
That's the
one there.
Yeah.
That's the one. I just thut that was Father Collins. There you go. It's not him there.
Yeah. Well,
twice I've given Father Collins adulation for stuff and he didn't do it.
no, but that one was specially made. Now, I'm not sure how much. I don't know if Father Mick's stuff is included in that one, or there's another one called No Poor Parishes. There's quite a few.
Jeez, there's a
of
lot,
this parish,
and we need a new one then.
Yeah.
We need a new one. There's somebody there. There's none there. I need a new one.
Yeah.
But look, Anne, I'm not going to keep you much more and sense that you had.
I wanted to talk to you about Holy Moses.
Go. No, you talk away. I'm happy enough. Go ahead.
I would say after I was teaching in St Mary's from 1972 to up until 1989, I was teaching P3.
Yeah.
right? But I was taking music throughout the school and all that kind of thing. And then in 1989, I'm not sure, but I think it was Mrs. Reagan and Mrs. McKernan, or might have been Rosemary O'Neill as well, who persuaded Master Alfie Kelly to give me full-time music. I think the numbers in the school might have been a bit lower that year.
There you go.
So I was released from the P3 class, and I was given music, and I was teaching music from 9 till 3 every day, and still taking the choir.
Brilliant.
And it gave me opportunities, and one of them was I came across the music of a musical. I went over, I forgot to tell you that. Every summer holidays, I spent at least 2 or 3 days either in Dublin or in London, because Emma was in London at that stage. Yes. And I spent those 2 or 3 days in a music shop looking for good music and for good musicals, which would suit children. And I came across this one called Holy Moses. And when I got it home, I learned how to play it, and I realised that the music was absolutely brilliant. It was like a rock musical.
There you go.
It's not even, I don't think it's even mentioned anywhere, but to me it was the equivalent of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yes.
Yeah. And the music was that type of music. Yeah. And I proceeded to learn it anyway, and when I started back that September, full-time music, I decided I'd try out a couple of the pieces with the P7s.
Yeah.
Well, they picked it up in absolutely no time, and they loved it, and they wanted more of it.
There you go.
So then I started doing all the rest of it as well, and we ended up putting it on. That was April 1990. We put it on in St. Colum's School. And I think we had to put it on 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
With the full of the hall. Wow. 3 or 4 times.
That's brilliant.
And there was a cast, that's the cast, a cast of over 100 in it.
Let's see. There's a lot of people in it.
1990, that was. And I've got a film of that. But it's not very good quality because it was my own camera, you know.
There's loads of people on here. We could read them out and they'll be going. They're still about. You'll be there all day.
Yeah. It started off being for P7, but it ended up being really from P4 up.
Yeah.
You know.
So the headline spot, Moses was Barry McBride.
Barry McBride, yes.
Pharaoh was Olga Conway.
Olga Conway, yes.
Aaron was Martin McGuigan. Pharaoh's daughter was Deborah Conway. Moses' mother was Mary McCullough. Pharaoh's son, Stephen Manning. Voice of God. Now, this is a big role. Should we call this person out? Because this dude here or dude Edda's, they're going to be the most famous person in the world. So, the voice of God was John McWilliams. So every time I see him now, I must nod and bless myself. And the angel of death will not call out your name, but that's brilliant. And there's so many people here, and you've got an orchestra, the different violinists, the recorders, the percussion, and there's seniors in the orchestra as well. There's just so many people here, and you know, like credit to you. Like I'm looking at this here, and this is a major, yet again, production. There's so many people
well, to
involved.
me, that was well worthwhile, and everybody in the staff helped with that.
Brilliant.
I mean, Kevin Toner and the men made the scenery. All the women helped with the costumes and with organising the props and all the rest of it.
Brilliant.
It was a complete. Everybody was involved.
Everybody's involved.
Everybody.
And I should say this is a Sunday, and just for everyone out there, I feel quite holy today.
Yeah.
The Holy Moses. Just thought I'd plug that to everybody. And that's amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
My ma will be proud of me there today. Well, and was the song the Israelites in that play? No.
Yeah, but there's about 8 or 10 songs in it altogether.
So it's just you.
And we put in extras. We put in By the Rivers of Babylon.
Aye.
And Eddie Cochran, what? 3 Steps to Heaven. A
There's
real rock and roller.
to heaven. Step to heaven. What?
Yeah.
And that's brilliant. And but I think sometimes it takes them doesn't it?
To lift it, yeah.
And
I tell you, they were put in 2 days before the show.
That's amazing.
And I think your Stella might have been one of them, was she?
Stella, were you involved?
Would she been 1990?
Yeah.
No.
No, were you too old? Oh, you're at university then? You sure about that? And are you lying? No, you do not want to be in Holy Moses or what? Oh, you were in the audience?
Right.
She was in the audience, but selling out 3 nights in a school, that's really, it's really good, and I suppose it's something you could have just kept going and doing, and would have been So, what was your last big production then, in a sense?
Well, then after that, it was just really school concerts at Christmas, but we went into it in a big way. I suppose I was justifying the fact that I was full-time teacher, so I had to produce something.
Oh, it's not an eye rattle. You have to go whole orchestra. Everybody has to sing. It's all fingers and bells. No, I know. Yeah. But that's great to be able and for Mr. Kelly, Alfie Kelly, to commit to that. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
He believed in music and creativity by doing that. By giving you that freedom to be creative. Yeah. And to still teach, obviously, you still taught as well. Yeah. But and the likes of the choirs now, are you still dipping your hand in and out of them, or are you just sort of?
You see, up until the COVID or the year before the COVID, I was still playing the accompaniment for the choir of the year for the school.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and. If they had an assembly or something on, like Mr. Kearney, he's very musical. Yeah. And he plays the guitar, and his class do a regular assembly. And I remember he wanted an accompaniment for, what was it? Out of Wicked or some, not Wicked. What was it?
One of the sort of West End plays type thing?
One of those musicals, yeah. And, one of the things they did was sing, Gary Barlow's Sing,
Oh, yeah,
And my niece's wee girl learned the piano part for it. And she played along with the P6 class, P5 or 6 class. And she played the piano, and they all sang along.
There you go.
It was very, very good. I was at it.
Brilliant. And do you still, I know you mentioned there your niece, would you still passed on your skills within your own family?
I did with Michael's Anya. Yeah. And, but... They're so much into sport nowadays. Yeah.
It seemed, but
Anya went to grade 5. No, she went to grade 8. Sorry, you can.
And what about?
Trying to think.
We have a tutor on here now, Kit Henry. Did you teach Kit?
Yes. I know, but I helped her when she was coming to an exam.
There you go. There you go. Well, she's in here now as a tutor.
Yeah. There you are.
So a small word. There you are. It goes around, comes around. There you are.
She's very good.
Very good. And I just thought instantly she'd have been mentored by yourself, and which is in itself a true thing.
Yeah.
Mentioning sport there, would you have any advice for any young people that maybe would like to get involved in creativity or have creativity in them, but they're not sure about how to approach it now?
I'd go for it. Try it. Try out something.
Me and you, exact same.
Even if it's only the tin whistle or the drums.
Anything. Try everything.
Try anything.
We'll name about 50 instruments here you could take part in, but we'll do it. But
I was going to tell you, Pat, I didn't have a piano until I was about 14.
There you go.
And somebody, I don't even know who it was, somebody must have given it to my mother.
There you go.
And it was always out of tune. But, but I remember when I was very young, going out to the garage where my father had all his tools and getting, nuts and bolts, hanging bolts of different sizes on a string on a nail, and I had 8 of them in a row: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la.
There you go.
And I was playing things like Jingle Bells and that.
You deserve that piano. You deserve that piano, I tell you. If you done that now and you put up 8 and it was done, definitely there'd be about 50 pianos come your way. People would go, come on, get that lady a piano.
Well, that was that. And then the accordion. My mother played the accordion.
Yeah.
And played the accordion, the mouth organ, probably. And apart from that, I can't think. I had a zither at one time, and I'd tried the guitar. I wasn't great on the guitar, but I was able to accompany children in school.
Play a few chords. And that's really, well, then you are a guitarist then.
No, not really. And my fingers won't, and I'm worried about losing the flexibility of my fingers now when I go to play. I can still play, but I can't stretch the full octave. Yeah. And so I keep playing, trying to keep it going.
It's naturally in you, to just play. I don't know if there was, you're able to see the Elton John movie that came out recently.
I didn't see it. Emma told me I should see it.
A very, very good player. Yeah, so he was.
Yeah. I'm a fan of Elton John.
I didn't know.
I've been since the 90s.
I wasn't sure that. I know he played cool and well, but I didn't know that he was someone that got an opportunity through his playing. It was his aunt or something that says, look, he's good, he should get an opportunity. But I don't think the parents at the time, they were maybe thinking different. Yeah. But he went on and he's I didn't know how good a player he was, but he's really good.
He's a brilliant player, And I was going to tell you, did I tell you about Bernadette McAllister?
No, you talk away there. Any stories, just pump them out, go ahead.
I don't want to leave her out.
Anybody.
I told you about Master Maloney.
Yeah.
Bernadette McAllister was Regina's aunt.
Yes.
And she taught piano and fiddle. Yeah. And she was very musical. She only died about a month ago.
Oh.
And she was a brilliant teacher in a time when piano teachers were famous for having a knitting needle or a ruler beside them.
That's just sort of...
but she, most of them did that. But Bernadette encouraged you and enjoyed music and had you playing duets with her. And she didn't care what kind of music it was, as long as she taught you the proper pieces and the grade exams.
Brilliant.
But she'd let you mess around, play things that weren't part of the curriculum.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Great.
And is there anyone else you'd like to mention on your? Can you take your time? It's 100%. I should tell the people out there: there's no vodka in the Coke, and there's no vodka in the Coke.
Not,
all right,
no.
There's no whiskey, no vodka. I don't even know what else goes with Coke. Any alcohol at all is none in that tin of Coke.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of it.
That's brilliant.
And I was going to tell you about my father and mother's music would have been, like Joseph Locke. Did you ever hear of him?
Yeah, he was a very famous sort of bard singer, wasn't he?
Yeah. More nearly operatic.
Opera singer, yeah.
Operatic. Yeah. Hear my song, Violetta. I remember my father was always mad about cars, and my memory of him is in the car and singing at the top of his voice, Hear my song, Violetta, or other things of that. What was the Mario Lanza one? I can't remember it now,
But Joseph Locke would have been one of them.
He was Derry.
A very famous singer, wasn't
famous,
he?
yeah. World, he was on the, he was.
The big stage. And did you get the opportunity to see him live or anything, or would he been too far away from it?
No.
Yeah.
but that was way in the early 50s, really, you know.
Aye.
I'm just checking this here, yeah. Oh, Bernadette Clark, Bernadette McAllister played the organ in the church as well, I think I told you.
You did, all right, you're all right.
The college, I meant to tell you, you asked me about St. Mary's.
Yes.
I did my 3 years at St. Mary's, but in 1979-80, when the TV programme was made, I had a year out to go back to college to do an advanced certificate in music. And that was the first time really studied music history and got really into classical music at that stage.
There you go.
But I love all kinds of music. Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing I was going to tell you, what kinds of music I like.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I've written down.
You're
You
all
can
right.
add
You're
or
all right.
take away. A classical, rock and roll, blues, jazz. And I remember listening to Radio Luxembourg on a Sunday night to the top 20, and I kept a list of the top 20 every week.
No way.
From I was 14
No
till I
way.
was 20.
No way.
Yeah, till I was 20. And then after I got married, I was trying to find that book. And I couldn't find it, so some of the younger ones in the house must have disposed of it or whatever, you know, but I never found it again. But that was very important. Radio Luxembourg on a Sunday night.
And hearing all them new tunes and different styles, you know, it would have been great because it would have been I suppose, an opportunity to get access to what was going on all over the world in music.
That's it,
and and pop style and all the church style.
And I was remembering then what kind of music we heard or saw on the early TVs. Like, we didn't have a TV, but I remember going to various houses on a Saturday evening to see Jukebox Jury.
There you go.
And one of them was Hamill's. They must have had a TV.
There you go.
Did you know Hamill's house? You know Teresa McNally? Her family.
Our family,
her father and mother, and May Hamill. May died. God bless her. And Frankie Hamill.
Frankie was very musical too. Yeah.
And he was like, he dressed like a teddy boy, but he wasn't a teddy boy, you know, but he was very musical. Very into his music of all kinds too.
Yeah, and played in bands too.
Yeah. And, oh yes, at Christmas, I was allowed to get one record at Christmas. And you went to Jack Henry's to buy the record, or Maura Henry's.
Maura down the street, beside Burns's shop now. Yeah. I didn't know Maura done records. I knew she done fishing tackle and everything. They done everything.
Records. And I think one of the records I remember buying was Ruby Murray singing Softly, Softly. She was a big star from Belfast.
Yes.
But she was America, England, everywhere.
There you go.
Big. And another one was, it's gone out of my mind now. Oh, yeah. No, I can't. I'll maybe remember it later.
That's a good
one. This is just over the years, the different things that appealed to me. Winifred Atwell, the piano, Black and White Rag. Do you ever hear that?
No.
Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, Little Richard, Ray Charles, Floyd Kramer on the Rebound. Did you ever?
Funny, that's a name come up recently. Floyd Kramer, there was a guy in here recording was saying to me that was a reference that the man they recorded had made.
And then, this is what I loved when I was very young too. Spirituals and gospel. You have to look this up if you haven't heard of her. Sister Rosetta Tharpe, a black woman who played the guitar and sang, down by the riverside, up above my head, there's music in the air. And she was a big woman and she played the guitar like mad and she sang at the top of her voice. And she was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Mahalia Jackson was another one. And Oh, do you know this one? Oh, Happy Day.
Oh, happy day.
Loved that one. Always intended to do it with the choir, but
should
never got to it.
It's a powerful song, isn't it? It's a real,
Brilliant.
it's a
Brilliant,
deep
yeah.
South gospel song.
Yeah. Aretha and Etta James.
Etta James.
Do you know
I
Etta
know
James?
Aretha, Etta James.
Etta James did one called At Last, and it's kind of blues, and it's absolutely beautiful. But the reason I mention it is because I was only reminded of it recently, because in the last film she did, Beyonce sang that song, Etta James's song At Last. So listen to the two versions.
I know the song, now.
You know it?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I thought that was brilliant, Etta James was the original, but Beyonce made a good job of it.
Pretty
as
good
well.
singer, yeah.
Yeah. Scott Joplin was the piano, the ragtime piano. Then during the folk era, it was Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, Peter, Paul and Mary, Lonnie Donegan.
Skiffle. Yeah.
Everybody had a tea chest.
That's brilliant. Well, that was sort of going the beat like a train.
Yeah.
The skiffle, yeah.
Rock Island Line, wasn't that his big hit?
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell, I loved her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both sides now. I don't know if Simon and Garfunkel fit into the folk thing, but they were kind of cross.
Yeah, they were. They were two class voices together.
Very.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
Then the 60s was the Beatles, the Animals.
Yeah. House of Rising Sun, that was their song. Yeah.
The Kinks, the Who, Procol Harum. Then
Satellite Fandango.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's based on the air on a string by Johann Sebastian Bach.
No way.
That's where it comes from.
There you go.
I can play that whole thing. You wouldn't know whether it's Bach or Procol Harum.
That's deadly. That's brilliant. That's a brilliant.
And then the 60s and 70s on, it was Motown. But my thing I loved then was Atlantic Stax Records.
Stax Records. That was
This is soul.
Aye. The
Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding, Sam Cooke.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. Aretha probably fits into that as
and
well.
that was that whole Motown. Barry Golden. He got all these artists together at that time back in them days, and this is the kind of music that was coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then I suppose after that was the Bee Gees and Stevie Wonder and various ones.
And Stevie Wonder came from the Motown era. He would have been a young member of it, but that's who his first releases came out of.
Well, it was really producers that were important in that stage, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And one of them was the Madman.
Spector.
But he produced some brilliant records.
Well, with his alternative mind, he made some good records. And he was the one went for the stereo sound with River Deep Mountain High with Tina Turner.
Ike and Tina.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I had that down somewhere.
There you go.
I must have
There
missed
you
it.
go. There.
Da-do, ron.
Yeah, I know that. Why do I know all these songs? But they're good songs. That's why I know them.
They are. They're brilliant. They stand the test.
Well,
maybe that's just because I'm old.
No. You're right. You're right. No, you're right. You're pumping the tunes out there. We're feeling young. We're feeling young in this part of the day. And don't worry.
Well, then I've got a list of current ones, but maybe you've had enough by now.
No, you continue on there. It's like a chart day. Sunday FM with Anne and Paddy.
This is my new top 20.
Yeah, we've just got the latest technology and the latest views for you. Who's selling big this week? Anne, tell me who's selling big in the 80s.
Well, it's a mix. Currently, I love Elton John.
Yeah.
Emily Sandé.
Yeah.
Adele.
Adele's a powerful singer.
Gary Barlow. Not all of the take that, but Gary Barlow I think's very good.
His own stuff.
Beyonce. two that you probably think that I'm too old for.
Now go.
Well, one of them is Bruno Mars and Uptown Funk. I think the production on that is brilliant.
That's a great song.
Brilliant.
And it's got a Motown feel. That's maybe why you like it. It's got that Motown. Hasn't it? It's got that sort of click to it.
It's very hard to play, I'll tell you.
There you go. It's hard to sing too.
There's a John Legend.
Yeah. He's a songwriter in his own right.
Lady Gaga.
You like her, yeah?
I don't know that much of her, but what I've heard of her, I like. I think she's good.
Powerful singer.
Michael Bublé's a brilliant singer. Yeah.
That's that show band. That's that whole.
Yeah, well, yes, very different. And I mean, I didn't like. I whisper this. I didn't like Frank Sinatra.
You're all right. Don't worry.
Because I was in my early teens and he was on all the time and I was just bored with him.
Just second with it.
Yeah.
He was everywhere. Yeah.
But I've got a renewed interest in jazz now.
Yeah.
For some reason, you know.
Aye.
But another one, but I think it's only one hit wonders, Birdie, Wings. And again, she's piano. Nearly all of those are singers, but they play piano.
There you go. So you've been attracted with that.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran's perfect.
Yeah.
I also like Randy Newman, who does film music, but it's kind of ragtime, you know.
Yeah.
You've Got a Friend in Me, do you know that
one?
Yeah.
He had a few big hits, Randy Newman, too, hadn't he?
He had loads of hits,
and he wrote a lot of songs for our
Small
people.
or short people, I'm not sure which it is.
That's right. I got it,
the only one I haven't mentioned, and he is definitely a one-hit wonder. I don't know what happened to him. He must have gone off the rails or something, and was out in the 70s. It was called Jesse, and he played the piano in it, and his name was Joshua Caddison. He was American.
Yeah.
And the piano in it is brilliant, but he was a good singer. And to me, he sounded very like Elton John.
There you go.
At the same time,
there you go.
know.
Maybe that's why.
He disappeared and Elton John went on.
And went on and was successful.
Yeah.
Well, you've showed a really broad spectrum of music here, Anne, you know.
Yeah, and that's not to mention the classical. I play classical all the time, you know.
Yeah, you could maybe do your own radio show. You've got that many songs out there, and I can be there. I don't say I would be your producer, but I could be there in the background, and showing that, I suppose, the love of music that you have. You've listened to all the different genres out there, and you've give them the time of day, which is important. I think it's important to say for people listening out there that maybe are into music and creativity that it's okay to listen to other styles.
Yes,
you know, because it, as you said earlier on, a good song's a good song.
Yes.
And that's it, you know.
And I didn't mention the Irish, but I mentioned it to do with the fish, but I love Irish.
Yeah.
I love Irish melodies and airs.
Yes.
I'm not so much into the diddly-dee.
Well,
thing.
There's no diddly-dee here today. There's more rock and roll and Little Richard and skiddly-dee. So we apologise for all the diddly-dee people listening to this. But that's the old folk style songs, the airs and laments that are passed down through history.
Lovely. Yeah.
And I think sometimes what happens now is some of them songs, they have their place in time, but sometimes maybe you're in a room and there's 16 verses later, as you say, you
get
tired. If you don't drink, it can be very bored. But not to say they're beautiful songs. And I think you've covered nearly everything. If you've anything you haven't covered, I think you've covered everything. It's been a great pleasure having you here and to talk to me. As I said right back at the start, you've been a great inspiration for me and many other people in the town that you probably won't even know you've inspired, because I don't think it's the type of thing that come up and stop you in the street and tell it to you. But I'm in a situation where I'm telling it to you, and on behalf of myself, I appreciate you coming in, and thank you for coming in. And You're the first community podcast we've done, and if they're all as enjoyable as this, I'm happy to sit in this seat and talk to anybody. If they're not, there's a wee trapdoor over there that I press a button.
Room 101.
Room 101. Apparently there's a third floor in this here underneath, and it's sunken, so you're not going to it. You're totally all right. You're over in the wee dancing corner there. So I wish you well and many years of musical adventure for you, and thank you very much for coming, and all I could do is give you a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
made it very easy.
Oh, thank you, Anne. Thank you very much.